Okay, so at the start of these new videos, I'm going to do some letters from people at the group, and if they have some horse pictures and pictures of their horse's feet, I'm going to do an evaluation on what I think is going on with them. Okay, so this is from Kelly W. She says, "Hi Linda, I hope I'm writing in the right place." You are. I'm Kelly W. and I've been watching your videos for years as well as studying all aspects of of foot of the foot that relates to soundness. I have rehabbed over 80 TB thoroughbred track horses as well as over 200 horses of various breeds from all over the world and have always been frustrated with all the issues with farriers and shoes. After a lovely horse fell while cantering from pain in the foot from imbalance that no one but me could see, I decided I could do just as good myself with horses barefoot. At the minimum, they won't be trapped in a shoe, so without writing a book, here I am, hungry to learn more. I have 3 horses now that have been doing them myself for 8 months. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do. Well, Kelly, I'll tell you what. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do because rehabbing thoroughbred racehorses is really a big job, and I'll tell you what, there's so many of those thoroughbreds that wind up going to the killer and everything else, and it's a big job to rehab them and make them useful for somebody and give them a good life. And so I'll tell you what, I applaud you tremendously. So anyway, it's pretty late here and I might be a little spacey on this, but anyway, we're going to go through some of Kelly's pictures that she sent me of this beautiful little horse. Um, just a minute here. I want to show you a picture of the horse first. Ah, there. Isn't that beautiful? You know, what a noble, beautiful guy. And boy, Kelly, she really sets a horse good, doesn't she? All right, so let's go back and look at this horse's feet because I'll show you what I see here. Well, if this thing will let me go back. Okay, now from what you've learned in the class so far, now do you remember what the shape of the foot is? Is the shape, now as you see, this foot looks square, doesn't it? Okay, and if you remember the shape of the true foot, let's see, I even have markers I can use here. Screen draw. All right, let's see. Let's use this. The shape of the foot, okay, remember, you're gonna, when you do a trim, you want to measure the dorsal wall here. Now, on the internal foot, okay, here we have the toe, which goes about to here on each side, right? Okay, but then on the internal foot, right here at the pillar, it starts getting shorter. So if we were to make that about 1/4 of an inch shorter, would be right about to there. I'm going to go ahead and just make this a little shorter here. I don't know if this is making sense to you. But our foot, the true shape of the foot is like this. See that? So what's happened here in this horse is the pillars right here have gotten long, and a lot of times what happens is when you start learning these trimming methods, and of course I've always been big on bringing back the toe, but I didn't, and then of course we round off the pillar here, but we don't take it down like we should. And so what you see here is that this horse is got too much hoof wall right in here. It's kind of starting to come out like this a little bit, which it shouldn't do. And it's long in the pillars here. And so if we look at, because this is the natural shape of the inner foot, and the wall should follow the inner foot. Okay, so again, um, this is why you want to measure your dorsal wall so that you're making sure that you're getting the foot in the right form here. Now, if I okay, let's go to the sole picture. Right here. See, what you usually find is um, this dorsal wall here, right here, is, first of all, the sole is very thin in the toe from the looks of it, but you see how square it is. Okay, and we know that the foot, we know from the internal foot that the foot is a little more oval shaped than it is round. You can see where there's white line separation here in the quarter, which is going to affect all the sole in the side of the foot as well here. And not as much separation here, but there's something I want you to look at here. Look at this heel, how far forward it is right here. See, now this one's back about right, but also even this heel looks like it's almost too far forward. And when you look at the side of the foot, it doesn't look like he has any real support in the back of this foot, and it looks like his bulbs are being pulled down and under. And I think he's kind of been maybe trimmed out of the back of his foot a little bit here. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look strong. This is a big, sturdy, solid horse, and he should have, you know, good kind of, not big feet, but have some more support in the rear of this foot here. And so let's go back. Let's see what we got here. So basically what you got going on here is these pillars are long and the quarters are long, and look at the hairline. The hairline, you can see it's really pushed up here. Well, we'll do another screen draw. Oh, that's, wait a minute. Okay. Now it's not wanting to draw. How come? Okay. There we go. Okay. Look at how, here's the hairline. But you can really see how that goes up there like that. And this goes up there like that. You know, it should be going, it should be kind of starting to go down a little bit like that. See? And so then, you know, what I do, I got a pretty good idea how long that dorsal wall should be. Right over here where the pillar starts, I'm going to make it at least 1/4 of an inch shorter. Right about there. I'm going to make me 2 lines. One over here at the side. Even a tad bit shorter than that. Okay, and then I'm going to trim that foot. I'm going to draw me a line going clear over here. That wasn't very good. And I'm going to take this off right here from the bottom. Okay, now the horse might be sore for a week or tender. You're going to want to keep him in soft ground so the foot can relax, because what will happen then is you're going to have, like you see in the horse I'm doing the experiment with the dead foot, and some other feet I'll show you, and like the one I showed you at Linda Marie's, it creates a funky looking arch and stuff. That's because of the distortion in the hoof capsule. Okay. Now let's go back. See, you can really see how squared off the pillars are and how jammed up the hairline is. Okay, what she needs to do is she needs to bring this pillar area down. Let's see. Let's do screen draw like what I will show in the video. Okay. You need to take your rasp aimed this way. Pretend this is a rasp. That's your rasp. Not really, and you need to start getting this down right in here so that the horse can get some release at the hairline. And definitely this area right here in the pillar, this has to come down so that you haven't got the square toe. Once you start rasping this down a bit, it'll start rounding off. And over here as well, get your rasp on there. That's a rasp, by the way. And start taking this down, because what you've got is this pillar is holding the whole foot in a kind of a weird distortion as they do. You also need to find out, I'm pretty sure the toe ain't long, okay, but it's also not developing any sole because the pillar's keeping everything forward, and it's got the sole here all cattywampus. That's my favorite word. And it's keeping this, it's pulling this heel here forward as well. See, that just don't, this heel, okay, here's your, right here's the base of your frog, where the frog dimple is. You know, these heels, in fact, the bulbs, okay, I see what now. The bulbs, this is bulb. Right here. Well, no, right here. Seems like the bulbs are pulled under the foot a little bit there. I'm making a mess. But this heel buttress should be clear back here. See? So something's going on. The back of the foot just doesn't have a lot of support and isn't right. These heel buttresses should be further back. And I'm pretty sure that if you trim this down, take these pillars down on the side of the foot and give the foot a chance to relax, it's going to push these heels back a little more. Now, okay, right here. See, there's just no heel, and the bulb is clear down on the ground right there. see that? There needs to be these buttresses and this. See, and you don't see any hoof wall here in the side of the foot. See, this is a case of where, like I say, the horse is kind of getting trimmed out of his heels, and out of the back of his foot. And it's not that you're trimming them that way, it's that those pillars are holding that whole foot forward. Okay, I'll show you the back of a foot. Just a minute here. Look at the back of a foot. Okay, you see how he's got some hoof wall here in the heel? Supporting his heel. Now remember, the heel is this whole area here, right? It's not just this little piece here, but it's this whole area here, right in there. Okay, now her horse doesn't have any of that, and every horse has to have some heel, which is not just this little piece here, but some actual wall right here that's supporting that lateral cartilage. See the bar right here going clear over to here. That horse has to have some hoof wall right in here, and he doesn't have any. Let's go back and look at it. Where are you, Kelly? Okay, look under K. After I do this, I'm going to bed. Okay, where is that? Alright, let's reduce it. Just a second here. Okay. Yeah. Bring it over here. Now let's find. Okay. Let's reduce it. Let's look at this foot and Kelly's foot. Okay. Okay, see how there's no hoof wall here? See? She ain't got any heel. Remember, the heel is this whole area here that's supporting and harboring and surrounding that lateral cartilaged heel, that whole area. And this horse hasn't got any. Okay, see there? He should have some heel. More wall back here that's supporting this bulb. So he just ain't got no heels. So what we want to try and do is restore this. Try and once you get the pillar off and you get the foot going back. I hope that's the same foot. I think it is. One of them front feet. Anyway, it looks a little different. Once you get these pillars off and these horn tubules all move back into place here, and you get your foot, it'll help all this right here push back under the foot, and then you can grow your horn tubules here in the side correctly, and it'll be back under the foot supporting these bulbs. So anyway, this is what I think, and it is 12 o'clock, and I am really tired, so I guess I'll go to bed. Good night. Okay, so I just want to finish up on this little horse that I was doing in session 8, where I showed you the very thick sole he had. And you have to remember that not all horses have the same kind of sole. And on our hoof group, and this is why I'm doing this class, not everybody's on the same page, understanding the same things and watching my videos, and they just did not realize that the horses I've been working on, um, their toes have come back and they've developed some sole, and so people need to learn to recognize when your horse has sole and when it doesn't. You don't take sole out of a horse that doesn't have sole unless the toe is the sole that is stretched way far before the toe. That's different. But right under the coffin bone and around the frog and stuff like that, you do not take sole out of there on a thin no-soled horse. And so because people are new to this, they don't often recognize this. So I am not advocating that what I'm showing you here, you just run out and do. See, because I did some of that stuff when I started trimming. I would learn something and run out and do it to my horse. You know, my poor horse. That's all I can say. You know, because I didn't have any understanding and of some things, and you know, now I'm getting the whole picture, and every single horse is different. And even though I'm trying to explain this stuff to you, you really have to wait till you get the whole picture. Because even when you have the whole picture, you can sometimes make mistakes. So that's what this class is for, to get everybody where their terminology is relatively the same. And when we talk, we understand what we're saying. And you know, the difference between thin sole, between thick sole, between retained sole, exfoliatable sole, the different hoof distortions, what happens when you take something off so that the horse, you know, all this stuff. You got to have an understanding. That's what I'm trying to give people, and that's what I'm trying to continue to get as well. Okay, so remember this little horse, and hadn't trimmed him for 5 or 6 months, and so he had, because he's got very good connection in the walls, very steep angle in the hoof wall, he is growing a great sole ridge around the perimeter of his foot. So we're just going to go through these a little bit. Okay, remember, see, this hoof wall is growing straight up and down practically. This sole ridge, that's a wall of sole there in the foot, a wall of sole. This horse's foot is not flat by any shape of the imagination. Okay, we will go through flat feet as well. Okay, because there are more horses that have flat feet than don't most of the time. But most people that have been trimming a while and bringing the toes back, okay, they get sole here in the toe, and that is the problem we're running into. We weren't taking this sole down correctly, and so our toes were getting higher and higher and higher, retaining sole in the toe, and they gradually get a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and then they get all out of whack, and things just don't work out right. So you can have too much sole as well as not enough sole. We're trying to learn how to maintain a balance, and the thing that I have developed, or well, that I'm working on, is a trim that once I get the horse's foot about right, a trim that is very consistent every time. That is why I do certain measurements. They're not exactly the same on all horses, but they apply to all horses in a very general fashion, combined with a true understanding of the foot and reading each foot as an individual. Okay, so what I'm trying to do, and what I realized, was that the horse's foot, even though there'll be some variation, that we have to get to where we do a consistent trim on a foot, so that it's just better for the foot. A consistent trim that is a correct trim grows the foot consistently and allows the foot to establish itself. So again, this is lots of, there's where, see, now why did I make these lines? As Okay, I'm reading this line along with reading the vertical intertubular horn line, plus reading the thickness of the sole, what's going on with my sole. So I can't always just make a line, some lines here and cut right to those lines. See, I have to add my other knowledge of the sole and of reading these lines along with it. You know, this is just a reference for me. Excuse me, because I was making square and round toes instead of oval toes. Okay, so that's just a reference point. And again, Gene Ovanik did the study on wild horses, and I know from the inner foot, okay, that the dorsal wall here and the wall in the pillars, okay, shouldn't be beyond a certain length once the foot is pretty much corrected. Now, if the dorsal wall is at a very long angle and way out there, you know, that's a different deal. I might, can't go to as low a degree at first or measurement. But okay, let's keep going here. There's that sole. We're just going to go through these pictures. Okay, now, here again, remember I told you I could have taken more off this pillar. You can tell this pillar's been high for a while by reading the growth lines, how they go like that. The growth lines should go like this, not like that. Okay. I might make a line like that, but then I will find by reading my sole underneath that I can't, take that foot off right to there. Although in this case, I could come pretty darn close. But this pillar also has been holding other things up, holding the toe up. It could be in the end that this horse would have a dorsal wall here even less than 3 inches once everything was formed correctly under the foot and the sole and the wall and the pillars. See, because when Gene Ovanik did his wild horse research, they found the longest dorsal wall from here to here was 3¼ inches. This is 3¼ inches right here because I marked my dorsal wall at 3 inches right here. So most of them were shorter than that, clear up to here. So once this gets straightened out, this very much could shorten up the coffin bone, and inner foot could be pushed up more in the foot, and he could develop way thick, even more sole under here than he already has. But this, is something again that is also grown as all these horn tubules come back into alignment. Once this has been this way for a while. I'm sure I've had jammed up, the horse probably have jammed up pillars most of his life, except when his foot was clear out to, let's see, am I in the right place? Okay, here's his wall now. When I first met him, his walls were like this. Do you understand? With the sole stretched forward and growing with the wall, like so. So, as the wall, as I did, okay, so the wall was like this, with the sole stretched out here, and what did I do? I used the frog, okay, the frog is right about here, okay, and I measured forward to about here, and then when I first worked with this foot, I did a rocker toe, which means you rasp off the toe here, like so. And because you're taking the leverage off of this point here, You're taking the breakover. See, when the horse would walk, he'd break over out here. Well, the weight of the internal foot, which is here, okay, well, let's get some of this away from here. When your breakover is out to here, that's not what we want to do. We don't want to circle. Sorry. Remember, you're dealing with two objects, okay? It's no different if you had a pair of shoes that were 2 or 3 sizes too big trying to walk in them, right? Okay, when your wall gets out to here and that horse is walking and breaking over right here, the toe ends here, okay, that makes the inner foot push on the bottom of the sole that way, and it also makes the wall just stretch out more, and you wind up with what looks to be a flat foot. Very little concavity. Okay? So, we map the foot to find where that inner foot is. There. And we want this toe here, relatively short so that there's not a lot of pressure under here when that horse is breaking over. Okay, so when I first trimmed the horse, he was back here. Okay? But I moved the breakover back to here by doing a rocker. His toes here. When I mapped the foot, I mapped it right here. Because remember, his foot is like this. There's sole all under here that should be over here. All this sole was stretched forward. So when I first did the trim, I had to rocker the toe by rasping up to this point and taking the toe off. Okay, but didn't take off the pillars, and part of that was because what Gene Ovanek teaches, that you should not take off the pillar. So, it's really hard. Once you're told not to do something, don't take off the toe callus, don't take off the pillar, don't touch the frog, or don't touch the bars, or the opposite way, take it all off, with the bars I'm talking about. Then that stuff is lodged in your head. And so if you go to do it, you feel like you're committing heresy or sacrilege or, going against some big law and stuff. And so a lot of these things took me time to overcome once that stuff is put in your head. Okay? So when I rockered the toe, I had not figured this thing out about the pillars yet. Plus I had that lodged in my head. Don't, in his video on YouTube about mapping and trimming the foot, he'll tell you, he leaves these pillars long every time on purpose, and he will tell you, don't touch the pillars, it'll make the horse sore. Okay? Well, you know what? That might be true. But here's something, and I was going to say something, now I can't remember what it was. Here's the thing. Yeah, these feet, okay, just a minute. Let me explain something. Okay, these feet, when they get distorted, okay, now the wall should be here, and the pillar should be here. Okay, we know that this one sticks out below here. Okay, so these feet, when they get distorted, okay, one thing the horse does, when that wall is going up here, okay, this foot adds extra support in here in the form of laminar serum, which leaches into the sole and double hardens and glues everything together. So even though you've got a distorted foot, the sole is not right in the pillar, the sole is not right any of these places. The survival instinct built into the horse, I don't know what to call it. Anyway, that foot goes into overdrive, producing this serum that like glues everything together and supports everything. It helps the foot adapt so it doesn't fall apart. but it's not supposed to be there. And you know, a horse can get by for a long time and seem sound. Now, their movement, obviously, if your toe was clear out to here, your movement is not going to be the same as it is if it's to here. And there's going to be different forces all in the foot and going up the leg and everything else. Okay? So, you know, that horse's foot will stay together for a long time because of that laminar serum that leaches into the sole and the white line, and how laminar wedges are developed and everything else. It's all there to try and help hold this foot together so the horse can survive even when his feet are totally distorted. His movement, he's going to be slower, he's not going to be moving as nice, things like that. People get so used to that they don't notice it. Okay? I had an old timer tell me one time a fast horse is a horse where you don't see his feet leave the ground. And the reason for that is the longer the toe, the higher the horse has to pick up his foot to move. See, so a horse with good, short, correctly fitted dorsal walls and hooves, they can run real fast without, you know, picking their feet up real high. All right, so what happens is these horses' feet will hold together, you know, a little bit that way, the hoof goes into overdrive, laminar serum stabilizes the foot. Foot gets a little longer, foot goes into overdrive, laminar serum filling up, stabilizing everything, growing it together. A little bit more, foot goes into overdrive, laminar serum again goes to work, solidifying into the sole and holding everything together. And you know, as long as the foot don't get beyond a certain place, pretty much this laminar serum will hold and stabilize and help the horse adapt. And there will not be any visible pain necessarily, but it doesn't mean the horse can't still be, obviously, when this wall tears away, there's internal injury. Okay, plus you're setting the toe of the coffin bone down on the ground. You're going to have coffin bone remodeling, little ski tips at the end, all kinds of things going on. But for the most part, a lot of horses get by real good, you know, even when their feet are clear out to here. And but then something happens a little bit more. This foot will only sustain itself for so long. Some horses may go their whole life right to there and don't seem to have too much problem, you know, but things will develop eventually on most of them. That's why the whole lameness industry is making so much money. Okay, so, but what happens is then it just gets to a point where that, even though there are these wonderful things built into the hoof, this laminar serum, laminar wedges, everything working together, trying to hold that capsule together onto the foot, there comes a point where that just don't work anymore. Okay? It could be right here. Your horse seems sound. Everything's going great. And then something happens. The shoer don't come. The horse trimmer don't come. You don't trim your horse. He gets a little bit longer, and that wall pulls out a little bit more, and you have structural failure, laminitis. You've always had a little laminitis going on as that's gone like that. But then when it gets to a certain point, the foot just cannot hold together anymore. And you come out in the morning and your horse is walking with the laminitis walk with his legs way forward, and people are going, I don't know what happened. It must have happened overnight. It must have been something he ate. Now, truly, they can't eat things that cause their feet to just blow apart. But I think in most cases, it was gradually going to happen anyway. See? It was just a matter of time. Now, you know, it can be what they eat. You add insult to injury there. You know, they got bad feet anyway. Anytime it's past this point, wherever it's supposed to be, okay, you've got the hoof capsule isn't right. The connection isn't right. The sole isn't right anyway. Okay? So there's inflammation in here, bits and bits and bits over time anyway, as this is happening. So then, sure, if they eat something on top of that, then that's just going to add insult to injury. Do you see what I'm saying? Because in the study they did on wild horses in Australia, they said how many horses they have to kill for that to figure out that those horses had laminitis. See, they don't tell you about that. Okay? They said that a lot of these horses seem to have laminitis. Okay? But the thing about wild horses and laminitis, they never show up lame, because if they do get laminitis, and it was most likely from pounding on hard ground, which would be what's called road founder, which is a mechanical laminitis. Okay, if they do get it, they recover quicker because they have a good tight hoof wall here. But a horse where gradually it's just had injury after injury, see, because what this is, when this wall goes from here to here, that's injury. That causes internal injury to the foot, and it sets the coffin bone here, okay, that's right back here. It sets this bone at the wrong angle. See, this wall should be fitting around that coffin bone like that. You see that? Okay, when this wall here, let's just go, starts going out like this, well, it sets this toe here down flat to where then this starts to remodel right here around the toe. So this has been happening. Internal injury. That's what it is. Let's call it what it is. Hoof distortion. What hoof distortion is injury. It's causing internal injury to the physical parts of the foot. No matter what it is, it's causing physical injury. All right, so where was I going with this? I don't remember. All right, so when we first come to a horse, let's get out of here. Okay, when we first come to the horse, you got to remember this wall here. This wall is what you call a retaining wall for the most part. Well, it protects this part of the foot, and then it grows down like this, and it retains the sole that is growing behind it. The sole should be growing like this. You see how that I would have pretty thick sole right here. If the angle of my sole tubule's growing like this behind that wall, I have pretty thick sole. Okay? But let's try, I wonder if I have a different color. Let's try a different color. Okay, but if my wall, what is that? Crying out loud. Okay, but, I see. Okay, let's do this. Here's his wall. Okay, now, here's his wall. Okay, I'm showing the thickness of the wall here. The sole, okay, is growing down like this behind it. See how long that is there? Okay, but, just a minute here. Okay, but if my wall grows out like this, you see that? What happens to my sole here that was like that? It starts growing like this. See that? Now here was the thickness of the sole, right here. It was this thick, right here. But by the time it gets out to here, it's only this thick. See what I'm saying? That's why you have to know the thickness of your sole. Now you remember on this horse, I really took out some sole that had attached to the overgrown wall and grown with it, didn't I? But when you have a foot that's out to here and you got sole that thin, you know, it's also going to be very thin. See, it's not just thin there. Here's our inner foot right here. Okay, it's going to be, let's see, how thin would it be under the inner foot? You see that? Your sole right under the coffin bone is only going to be this thick here instead of this thick here. Okay, well, let's move on now. Okay, now I have taken him down to that line there because his soul said I could do that. See? Okay, now this is what I wanted you to notice. Remember how I told you that the wall, the toe is not round, the toe is not square. According to the inner foot, the toe is more oval. See? Now, over here on the inside, notice how this is more round? Right here? It's more round than this side over here. Do you see that? Okay, let's draw a line. Right to there. Notice how this is not round, but notice how this side is more round. Okay, now as we go on through these pictures, you're going to see where the growth lines on this side go up like that. Okay, now what I got going on here is I have a long pillar on this side. As the pillar grows longer and higher underneath the sole, your toe gets rounder right here. I noticed this as I was going through the pictures. See, you're going to see slight variations, and as we move on here, you're going to see how the growth ridges in that side of the foot will keep going here. See, look at that sole. Look at the straight up and down sole tubules. Okay, look right here. See, even right here. I don't know if yeah, okay, I took pictures the other side, but even right here, you can see where my pillar's been long. See, I could have maybe relieved that even a little more so that this wall kind of went like that, and then this whole area here would have dropped down because look at the growth ring. I got that right? Look at the growth ring. See there? You know, I might have been able to take just a little bit more off of this here. Not a lot, not that much maybe. Okay, so that it would relieve this area more. Okay, so that, look at the hairline. See? So that it would relax a little bit more here. See, your growth lines need to go like this, not like that. You see that one there? Okay. Oh, there's a good picture. See the growth line? See, I could have taken more out of this pillar right here. Remember, okay, these are your pillars. Anyway, let's just keep moving on before I stop a lot. I think you should be getting it somewhat by now. Okay, look over here. You can see where the wall is rippled and buckling right here. See, and you see the lines? It's because my pillar is high, and a lot of times the sole's going to be up, wedged up underneath here, pushing this. Look at how it bulges right here. See how much higher the wall is? Where are we at here? Look at how this bulges right here. See? Okay? Look at the bulge in the wall here. look at the compression lines right here. See, and the lines actually go up like this. See them? Well, here's a good one. I can follow it. Goes like this. Shouldn't be like that. These lines should be very smooth, very smooth, going around like that. Or, anyway, they're not supposed to be like that. I need to keep moving on here. There you can really see the compression lines right there. See, I could have brought this down more right here. From the top, rasping down this way. Okay. Yeah, see, right in here. I could have rasped this down some more right here. Okay, this is the other foot, and this is the foot I want to talk about. Alright. Again, this foot has lots of sole. See it there? Okay, now, when you first trim your foot, you come up under this apex, because there'll be frog padding here. And you lightly trim till you get to the place to where the frog and the sole meet. You gotta find the true apex of your frog. See right there? See how nice I cleaned up that frog? That's how you gotta clean your frogs up. Okay, look at that. See how the sole has grown up with the wall there? Okay, here's where I made my lines, just like the other foot. 3 inches. Just a minute. The frog is 2 3/4 inches. I made the dorsal wall 3 inches. I'm working on that theory. I'm not advising everybody do what I do. Look at how the hairline is raised in the quarter. Look at the growth lines. Okay, so I made this 3 inches, and I come over here to my pillar, and I made it 2 3/4 inches. But look how, making those lines, look how it follows the angle of the growth line here. Okay, this is for my view. I'm also reading the sole, what's going on in the sole. I'm not just drawing lines and cutting to a line. Okay, but I am finding a kind of a pattern going on here. Okay, which is going to take some more research. All right. Let's move on. Okay, here again, I'm scribing out the sole so I can get the wall an even depth from here to here when I take my nippers. And I know, see, this sole has grown up with the wall. See, the wall is too long. See, it's wanting to break off to here. Okay. See there, just like the other foot. Trim this foot just like the other foot. Oh, horse nose. Again, I marked the base of my frog, the true apex of my frog, and then I divided that length in half to make the mark for where my toe should end. Okay, now this is just where I aimed down the foot and want to describe out the sole. Right here is 1/3. From here to here is 1/3 of the foot. So you can see this horse's feet are just really good. I trimmed this foot exactly, tried to, the same as the other foot, because both the feet are relatively the same. Your feet should get so that they are relatively the same. Now what I'm not understanding is I thought this was the horse where, okay, see how I come right up to that line? This foot is a little different than this foot. See how you just naturally want to make them pillars long? Okay, there's the end product. He's got awful good little feet, but still, I'm a little high in the pillar here. But this will come down. But notice this foot is better than the other foot. Notice there's not as big a bulge up here as there was on the other foot that had the one pillar that was higher. See, and because of your body mechanics and everything else, you will also trim different on one side than the other. See, look at that rim of sole. See, that is what you're wanting, a ridge of sole that is uniform and consistent going around the whole perimeter of the foot. See how thick it is? That is why wild horses have such tough feet, because of this rim of sole and because the sole is contained by the wall. Okay. Okay, this is the foot. Okay, this is the foot I wanted to show you. Now I'm getting a little confused. Oh, this was a back foot. That's why. Okay, I trimmed the back feet exactly like I do the front feet. Okay, notice this big, how the wall has torn away from the sole here. This is so interesting. This is going to teach you a lot. This horse did this just for us. See that, how it's torn away from the sole right here? See that big crack? Now these are back feet. Okay, look here. Look at how the white line is all curved there. Okay, now what I want you to imagine here, okay, you see how the sole has receded back like this? Okay, now what happens most of the time? Let me get a thing. Let's see, color. Let's do a different color. Let's do yellow. Okay, you see where the white line is here? How the wall tore out right here? What usually happens, okay, is that when the wall stretches forward, as I was discussing, when the toe and pillars get long and the sole is connected to it and the sole stretches forward with attached to the wall, just like it is right here. See how it remained attached right to here? Right to here, it's attached to the wall. Okay? But right here where the wall tore away, you can see that this white line goes clear back over to here, right? Well, usually what happens is as toes stretch forward, you're going to see that the sole stretches forward with it, because the foot is designed to release that laminar serum and glue everything together so that that whole foot stays together. And the sole stretches with the wall. And so the angle of the horn tubules change to become more horizontal. Okay, so ultimately what could happen is that this sole, which is right here, did not stretch away with the wall when the wall broke out there. Ultimately what can happen is the sole just stretch right with the wall there, okay? And then you would have this big gap in here that you didn't even know about, or stretched sole that you didn't even know about, because this is going to look all nice and pristine and white line and sole stretched with the wall. This is what happens in the pillars right there. Let's take that off. Okay, look at all the sole. See, I've scribed some out right here, and taken it out over here where that gap is, but I've left this chunk here so you can see it. See there? Again, look at the nice sole tubules growing up there. Big old chunk of sole. See how deep the apex of the frog is in the foot with the wall going straight up like that? Look at that. Looks like a bowl. You know, what happens if you don't take the excess sole? Remember, a good foot has uniform thickness of sole, not only thickness going from here down to the internal foot, but across as well. You know, a uniform ridge of sole that is the same around the whole foot. If I was not to take down this toe enough, eventually this toe will get very high, put the back foot here at a negative palmar angle where the toe was higher. Isn't that interesting, the way that pulled away from that sole for us to look at there? Now just imagine if that was all connected and it had pulled the sole up here and had a nice white line here. You'd have this big old lopsided pillar here, and what that'll do is it's going to skewer the whole hoof capsule, because as the horse breaks over, it's going to throw him over here onto this part of the foot, and it's also going to create an imbalance back here in the back of the foot. Okay, now imagine if I was not to get enough of this sole out. Okay, if let's see here. Imagine now, let's say this is where your foot has to go, which this is where it's going to go, pretty much, pretty close to. But imagine I trim it like this. What's going to happen? That's going to set the heels back, and the internal foot, which is like this, is going to wind up being, I don't know if I can do that. Like this, or even eventually as this toe raises, your internal foot coffin bone angle starts being like this. See that? Because you allow this toe to get raised and raised and raised. Okay, and the pillar, look at the growth line here. Okay, and the pillar gets higher, gets higher as well. Okay, let's keep moving on so I can get out of here this morning. Okay, see how that busting away that hoof wall, see how that brought that pillar out like that? Okay, now the hoof wall can grow like that. Okay, and the sole can stretch with it. And all this can become long and round looking and high. There, I've taken it off. That's interesting. Again, see how that sole can just stretch right along, couldn't just stretch right along, and it could be right up here, and then you have this lopsided toe and you're not even realizing it. Long pillar. See how deep that foot is? The sole. That's why you got to take that down. I'm taking it down more and more here. See now, back feet are definitely not round. I'm going to tell you that right now. See how they're not even oval. They're more, they're not as oval as the front feet. They're more squared, which I'll show you at a later time. Not squared. They're not square. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. See, I'm almost down to my line there. What if I I didn't know to take it down that far. See, this is still high over here. There we go. I'm down to my line. See, I took that out quite a bit, didn't I? Oh, let's move this so you can see. See there? Look at that rim of sole around the toe. See, especially in the back feet, they will really retain sole in the toe a lot of times. But of course, when your front walls are right, they will as well. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, I'm trying to make a uniform ridge of sole around the toe. And oh, there's my skeeter. All right, well, that is enough for this video. I have a Sunday. I am going to Noah. We are going to have fun.